everybody. Our next speaker is Mary Kunert. Mary was one of the early presidents of Celtic Women International. She founded a branch of CWI in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, and later moved to Oklahoma and founded a branch of Celtic Women there as well. Mary is going to speak on 12 Saints, 7 Celtic Nations. Mary?
Hi, I am Mary. I come from a family of poets. My father, Hut Steely, wrote poetry, and my brothers Matthew and George also wrote poetry. We have a book of each of their collected works. I myself have published 2 chapbooks of my poems called Fragments and Seeking, as well as I wrote a cookbook of folksy recipes called Sluthagen and Green Meatballs, which is available on Amazon. I wrote as a very young person, stopping when I was about 20. Then, when in my 40s, I decided to publish the book of my dad's poems and went back to my original writers' club to get advice. I started writing again and haven't stopped since. My current project is the subject of this talk and is a project after my own heart. The book is in its final stages of editing and in search of a publisher. It is entitled 12 Patron Saints, 7 Celtic Nations. This book started in a very simple way. We all know that St. Patrick is the patron saint of Ireland. Most of us also know that St. Bridget is also a patron saint of Ireland. Then I found out that Columcille, also called Columba, is also a patron saint of Ireland. Ireland is rich in patron saints. But what really got me going was when I found out that Columcille is also a patron saint of Scotland, along with St. Andrew. Well, to say the least, I had to find out about the other 5 Celtic nations and their patron saints, thus the book. The Celts are all interesting and full of legends, stories, and history. So I will review each country and its saints, starting with Ireland. Ireland, that little island of green, whose closest neighbor to the west is the United States. She is shaped like a teddy bear with her face toward America and her bottom towards England. She is a beautiful land, and the people are all so friendly. They love us Yanks, probably because they all have relatives or friends who have come here. I remember being there one year with my daughter Bobby. We were in Dublin trying to find St. Stephen's Green. A man stopped and asked if he could help. We told him what we were looking for, and he said, and I quote, "Oh, that's easy. You just go down and down and down, and there you are." And he was right. We all know her flag, 3 bars or stripes, green, white, and orange. And we are so impressed to know that it stands for peace between the orange, Northern Ireland, and the green, the Republic of Ireland. The first saint, St. Patrick, best known of the 3, came to Ireland in 431 after escaping from life as a slave in his teenage years and becoming a priest and begging to go back to the people that he loved. He lit the fire at Beltane on Tara before the Druids lit theirs. The Druids said that if the fire was still burning in the morning, it could never be extinguished. And indeed he was right. The icon was painted by a very dear friend of mine, Bob Fleming. St. Bridget, Ireland's second patron, is said to have been professed as a nun by St. Mel. One legend says that he accidentally used the wrong oath and made her a bishop, the only woman bishop ever recorded. She, when starting her monastery, asked for land from a neighboring lord. He said she could have whatever her robe covered. She set it on the ground, and it grew to the size she needed. He could not lose face, so he gave her the land. The Bridget icon is also done by Bob, and the stitchery of Bridget was done by me. Columcille, one of the many monks who copied books as their job, secretly copied a book of St. Finian's for himself. When found out, Finian demanded it back. From the judgment that followed came the first copyright law. I quote, "To every cow his calf." Quote. He also caused, because of his wrath at the judgment, a battle that killed many, many men. He immediately felt guilt and asked for punishment. He was exiled from his beloved Ireland, told he could never set eyes on her again. The painting is done by Cindy Mattei, a very dear friend of Celtic women. So you can imagine how my curiosity piqued when I found out that Tom Hill is also a patron saint of Scotland, along with St. Andrew. Oh, Scotland, that northern part of Britain, shaped like St. Nicholas, she has always, despite being under English rule, kept her identity. Legend says that in 832 AD, King Angus led the army of Scots against a Northumbrian army. He had visions of St. Andrew, followed by a saltire, an X-shaped cross, appearing in the azure sky during the battle. Needless to say, they won the battle, and this became St. Andrew's flag, and eventually the flag of Scotland. Tom Hill, well, you know about him. But did you know that he was exiled from Ireland and he ended up on Scottish Isle of Iona, where he began his evangelizing of Scotland? Their other patron saint, St. Andrew, is one of the 12 apostles. As an apostle, he preached all over the known world at this time. It is not known if he made it as far as Scotland, but it is said that his bones made it and are highly venerated there. I call this the stories of traveling bones. The story of the flag tells how he got to be the patron saint. Now, as there are 5 other Celtic nations, I decided to continue exploring this Celtic patron saint business. 2 of the remaining 5 Celtic nations are on the Isle of Britain. Cornwall has 3 patron saints, just like Ireland. Cornwall is a lovely peninsula on the southern part of England. She had been under English rule since the 11th century. Missionaries from Ireland and Wales came to her in the 5th century. She has an abundant number of saints. Most of them are pre-congregation, which means before the Pope actually named them. In other words, they're traditional. Her language comes from Norman, French, Latin, Cornish, Latin, and English. Eventually, it became a language of its own, still spoken, similar to its Celtic Breton root. Her flag is a white cross imposed on a black background. Some say St. Piran's family adopted this flag. It is also said that the white cross on the black background symbolizes melted tin on a black obsidian rock, as the Cornish were tin miners. The first saint is St. Michael the Archangel. The saint is an honorary, named as an honorary saint, as angels have no need to be canonized. In 496, he appeared at St. Michael's Mont in Cornwall, concurrently with St. Michael in Normandy, to some fishermen. Also, the Battle of Hastings was fought under his banner and won. St. Petroc, called the captain of the patron saints. Legend says that he converted Constantine to Christ by saving a stag that ran into his cave while he was, as he often did, living as a hermit. Why Constantine did not just kill the stag anyway says something about him, or of Petroc's charisma. There is a history of Petroc. St. Piran. Piran is dear to the hearts of the Cornish. He was thrown into the Irish Channel in a stone boat by Irish heathens. Eventually landing in Cornwall, his first converts were a bear, a fox, and a badger. Soon his message spread about the country to actual people. There is also a history of him. Wales is also on the British Isle, another beautiful country. When the Romans left Britain in the 5th century, he redefined her Celtic identity. Edward I of England overran her in the late 13th century. He had a short time of independence under Owen Glyndwr in the early 16th century, but was annexed by England finally in 1535 to 1543. Proud of her Celtic roots, Welsh along with English is an official language. Her flag is a red dragon on half green, half white field. The dragon is not always the same, but always similar. It comes from dragons in the Celtic mythology, or perhaps from the Romans. Her patron saint, St. David, was born in Wales to St. Non, sometime between 454 and 512 AD. He is supposed to have lived over 100 years, though some say 77, which was old enough for those days. Some say he was the son of a king. Also called Duisant, he evangelized Britain as well as his native Wales. It is accustomed to wear a leek on his feast day. Leeks are related to the daffodil, and many people rather wear the daffodil. There is a stitchery of him also. Between the Isles of Britain and Ireland lies the Isle of Man, which is the smallest but perhaps the proudest of the Celtic nations. It is a self-governing British Crown dependency. The Queen is the ruling monarch as the head of state, called the Lord of Man. Britain handles foreign affairs and defense. A lieutenant governor represents the Lord of Man. He is governed by a parliament called Tynwald, which has existed since 979 AD and is the oldest continuously operating governing body in the world. English is her official language, though Manx is spoken and taught. However, it is classified as critically endangered because of lack of use. She has the largest working water wheel in the world to clear a mine, called the Lady Isabella. She is famous for her tailless cat, the Manx, and also for a breed of almost tailless sheep called Lothair. Her flag is very unique, called the Castilian, which is what the first ruler of Man, Manannan MacLear, turned himself into, which is 3 legs on a center armored thing, and declared, "Whichever way you throw me, I stand." The patron saint, Saint Muggled, has many conflicting stories about what his name was and how he became a saint he is today. One of the most popular is that as the second son of a king, he turned to piracy, which was common in those days. The story says that McToole, as he was known then, faked his death to fool St. Patrick when he came on board the ship. When Patrick left, McCool was found to have actually died, so the crew hastily called Patrick back. Patrick revived McCool and chided him about leading his men into piracy and sin. He made him help lead good lives from that day on. Patrick then sent Muggled adrift at sea and instructed him that when he reached land, he had to chain his legs together and throw the key into the ocean. He did this and was taken in on the Isle of Man by Bishops Conagry and Romulus. When they found the key in the belly of fish, they decided it was time to ordain him a priest. The next featured nation is Brittany, which is an administrative region. Equate that with a state in our country of France, located in the northwest corner of France. She has retained her Celtic identity and would prefer a greater autonomy from the French Republic. Rome came around 51 BC and taught their gods and practices. In the 5th century, missionaries came from Wales bringing Christianity. There were 7 founder saints who mostly elevated to bishop. However, their patron saints are not among the founder ranks. Brittany brags about 300 saints, not all recognized by the Catholic Church. They are celebrated with pardons, a Breton form of pilgrimage, and one of the most traditional demonstrations of popular Catholicism in Brittany. Special indulgences are granted on these days. Her flag consists of 7 stripes in black and white, representing the 9 dioceses of Brittany. The standard consists of 13 ermine on a white field. It was designed using our American flag as its source. She has 2 patron saints, Saint Anne, the mother of Mary, who is the mother of Jesus. He became patron saint of Brittany in the 1600s when a lady appeared to Yves Nicolazic, a villager of Kunert, and found a burning candle on the ruins of a chapel that had been destroyed or let go to ruin, asking that her chapel be rebuilt. She appeared asking that her chapel be rebuilt. The ruined chapel was dedicated to St. Anne. Kunert means Anne in Breton. It took her appearing twice, but finally he did go to the church, which had to do its own investigation. It finally did determine that the visions were true and the chapel was rebuilt. Their second saint is Saint Irwin, also known as Yves and Evo of Kermartin. Irwin died at the young age of 50. He spent 18 years in university classes at Paris and Orleans, getting degrees in canon law, theology, and civil law. He was ordained a priest and served as a priest and as a judge. He could have been an attorney, but priests were not allowed to be lawyers. He was a member of the Third Order of St. Francis and lived as a poor man, so he came from wealth that apparently was paid out to him annually. He gave away all his earnings, dressed in rags, and slept on a stone pillow. He finally started wearing better robes in court because it seemed proper. Then one day went into a hospital that he had built and came out in his tunic and the hood from his robe. The following inscription is on his tomb. Saint Ito was a Breton, a lawyer and not a thief. A marvelous thing to his people. Even then, a comment on lawyers. Finally, often not included in the modern list of Celtic nations because her language is lost, is Galicia, an Asturias in Spain. Galicia, a region located in northwest Spain. Her peoples, like the Irish, are famous for their horses and horsemanship. She is, as I said, not always considered a Celtic nation because there are no native speakers remaining. However, her written language has minor characteristics of the Celtic tongue. She has the gaita, a Galician bagpipe, and her music is distinctly Celtic with Spanish overtones. There are dolmens, especially near Caledonia and Azekos. Her flag is reminiscent of St. Andrew's flag. It is a blue stripe running from the upper left-hand corner of the flag to the lower left on a white background. Her patron saint is St. James the Apostle, also called James the Greater. He was one of the 12. It is said he traveled to all edges of the known world. If he did not make it to Galicia, it was believed that his bones did. A tomb in Santiago was room to house the bones of the saint. This is disputed, but it did not stop pilgrimages to travel on foot the way of St. James to Santiago during the Middle Ages. It was one of the three great pilgrimages that gave great indulgences at the time. They were Rome, Palestine, and the Way of St. James. Even today, people make this pilgrimage from various cities all over Europe to reach the Cathedral Santiago de Compostela on or just before June 25th, his feast day. The Way, a fairly recent movie starring Martin Sheen, features a modern-day tale of a pilgrim on that walk. That's the 12th, and that's the 7th. We're showing, as a last stitchery, a picture of the wild geese. The wild geese were what the young men who joined the British Army at certain times in the history were called. I did the wild geese spook pattern flying out over the ocean with a cliff in the back, in the foreground actually, showing a grandma, a mother, and some sweethearts. God bless you all and be a witch, as they say.